and welcome to JagaVision episode 29. Today is going to be a pretty exciting episode. I'm Jared Nyberg. I own Jaga Silk. You can check out our stuff at www.jagasilk.com. Appreciate you watching today. We're going to be drinking some Huang Jingui, a really nice Fujian Oolong with a guest, Matt Stern of Matt Stern Music, and Sherry Ann from Sister Speak. Today, unfortunately, in the background, you'll be hearing a little bit of more clatter than you normally would because we're brewing kombucha, as the kombucha's decided that it's ready now, and we have to respect that. So that's what we're doing. As I always do, I like to start with drinking a tea that I've never had before. Today, I'm thinking that the tea to have is this Yunnan big leaf using the Shihao cultivar from actually a new farm in Yunnan, China. That's certified organic. Never opened these leaves up. The price is pretty low, so I don't really have high hopes for it. That shouldn't be what makes my decision at all. Normally we would want to make them by drinking them blind. But within reason, the price can tell you a little bit about what to expect. But opening it up, they've listed this as their finest grade. It's actually pretty impressive. We're looking at some really beautiful leaves, actually. Yeah, so I'm going to get 3 grams. I'm bringing my water to boil. Hopefully I have enough. I do, good. You can see those leaves. They look pretty amazing. And we're going to give this a try. So I'm going to brew in glass. I know we've been talking a lot about how clay is definitely going to improve your interaction with crimson teas, or with tea in general. I'm still not convinced that I shouldn't try teas first in this neutral environment, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use glass just for its neutrality until I can be convinced otherwise. So, again, dry aroma. Not a lot there. Maybe some toastiness will be released in the cup. Yeah, I'm picking up some chocolate. That's pretty emblematic of the Yunnan terroir. Gonna set a timer here, probably for 3.5 minutes, I'm thinking. Drop that in. So I like to do, just kind of as a starting point for a lot of fully withered crimsons, I really enjoy doing this 3.5 minutes, 180 grams of water over 3 grams of tea. It was actually 2.8 grams of tea, which is kind of like 1% less tea than we would really want. So I also dropped my liquid volume by 1% from that 180. Looking really nice though in the cup. Each of those I want to look at these leaves a little bit more. Really, really pretty. I'm just going to check out the dry leaf here. So I'm looking at, yeah, really well manufactured, it looks like. I mean, appearance-wise, right? The proof is in the pudding. But lots of bud content. Really well put together. I'm not seeing lots of different leaf sizes. It's obviously one batch and not a whole bunch mixed together. Really interesting when you can hold up, I don't know if you can see that okay, but the bud set is intact. So I'm actually holding the stem, and that's been plucked off of the leaf by hand, and then they managed through very careful processes to keep that bud set intact. That's actually a really good sign of a tea that's that's been managed really carefully. That's nice to see. Okay. Let's see what happens here. So gonna grab myself a cup. Might actually drink it out of glass today just so I get a nice sense of color. It's been kind of interesting for me recently. So yeah, not a lot of aromatics in the lid. For those of you watching that don't know, crimson teas are also made from Camellia sinensis, the tea plant. And to create them in a way that allows for this really nice dark brown color to emerge, it's a process of enzymatic oxidation. So you're really going to have a you're going to try and allow for the propyl oxidase enzyme. One second. Hey guys, the courier's here. If you want to let him in, thanks. So the enzymatic oxidation lets you really pull out some really beautiful brown color, but you're also going to break down the cell walls in the leaf. You're going to draw out a little bit more sugars. You're often going to find that the tannins are reduced. So when you're dealing with crimson teas, you can use you're actually encouraged to use a much hotter temperature than you would say green tea. Green teas, they're only going to allow for that enzyme to do its magic for like max 23 hours. Really, they don't want it to do anything at all. The goal with green tea is to really reduce all opportunity for the PPO enzyme to brown the leaf. So after harvest, they're put into trucks that have in more advanced setups that are being cooled with fans. And then they date time mark when they drop them off at the factories, and the factories do their utmost to make sure they're processing in under a day so that they're not hitting this challenging moment where they start to oxidize and bring out flavors that are not a green tea. Crimsons, though, are the opposite side of that coin. It's purposeful. They say in Darjeeling that your goal is to freeze or do the kill green process where you hit it with tons of heat to kill that enzyme when you can smell green apples. Yunnan, oftentimes they're going to wither deeper than the Darjeeling region in India. In Yunnan, China, you're going to be talking, that's just a deeper development of leaf. Smells really good. Picking up not a whole lot of aromatic. It's quite surprising. It could be because it's so hot, right? This is boiling water. The flavor is really smooth and rich. Like I'm getting a lot of nice texture. I'm not tasting under extraction. I'm not tasting sort of a woody flavor, but I'm also not getting much around. It's like teasing me. It's like it wants to release something. So I wouldn't write off this tea, but I wouldn't be super stoked about it made the way that I've made it. So I might experiment with a longer extraction time because it seems like it might hold up. You know, I'm going to cheat actually. I'm going to drop this water. The joys of enjoying the cup yourself, right? I'm going to see what happens if I just let it hang out in there just a little bit longer. This isn't really truly going to be an extra 30 seconds because, you know, dropping emptying your teapot is a way of pulling at the leaves. There's going to be a little bit of an agitation that's going to speed up the extraction a little bit at the end there. So putting it back in and then bringing it back out. There's also a thermal loss. You're going to have some heat loss. It's going to interrupt your ability to really pin this down. But it does give you at least a sense of what would happen if you were to be a little bit more patient with the extraction. Let it go to 4 minutes instead of 3. Let's see how it goes. Okay. And wonder if there's more aroma. Yeah, I'm smelling like some potato now that was missing before. Yeah, way more flavor. Yeah, I think this tea really wants a longer extraction. I'm actually going to push it a little bit more. Something tells me that closer to a 5-minute extraction, or at least getting a sense of what that might look like, is going to be helpful. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that first sip that I had at 3.5 minutes, which is pretty standard, I have to say. Like most teas, I can feel comfortable doing a 3.5 minute extraction if they're a crimson tea from Yunnan, this style. But you do see people putting on their packaging 5-minute extraction times, and I always veer away from those teas because we're predominantly a wholesale company, so we supply a number of cafes around Canada, and those cafe customers are not going to appreciate a longer extraction time. So I want to couple the perception of quality with something that's practical, that's going to work in and under the restrictions of a fast-paced cafe environment. So I try to max out my times at 3.5 minutes. Okay, so look at that. Okay, look at that color. So it's looking really nice. Got really beautiful visible texture. That amber brown, right? I poured it high to aerate it a little bit. That can draw out a little bit more aromatics. You know, arguably it speeds up this 15 minutes of sort of safe space we have before the volatiles start to noticeably oxidize. Now I'm bringing out more tannin. So 5 minutes is an uncomfortable extraction time. Yeah. So never do this at home. Post dilution curbs the tannin, and when you have over extracted, it's cheating. You don't get a real sense of the tea that way. Give me a moment. But wow, yeah, 5 minutes. That pulled out some harshness. Note to self: do not brew this tea at 5 minutes. You know, I'm gonna try it out though at 4 minutes. See if that's the way to do it. We actually have some crimsons from Japan that tasted good initially at 3.5 minutes, and then 6 months down the road, like our Kocha Satsuyu, it still officially is a 3.5 minute brew time, but we found that 4 minutes just tastes that much better. Yeah, that's nice now. So we'll be joined very shortly by Matt Stern and Sherry Ann from Sister Speak. Matt Stern is from Matt Stern Music. You can find Matt Stern at his Instagram at Matt Stern Music. You can also find him on mattstern.com. Sherry Ann is found at sisterspeakmusic.com, and they both have amazing music projects. So having two musicians on today is going to be exciting, drinking tea together. See if I can't encourage this process. So give me a moment. Okay, Matt and Sister Speak. Let's see if we can't get them on the show sooner rather than later. So, sent out that invite one more time. And we'll see what happens. Yeah, that actually worked out okay. Yeah, I think I could really temper that acidity by reducing that brew time. Again, not convinced this is going to be like a tea that we're going to have at JagaSilk, but the leaf color, the oxidation, everything is much higher quality than I thought. You can actually see that pretty good. The rust color is doing a lot in terms of, you know, but when we open, you can tell also a lot by once the leaves unfurl how good quality that oxidation is. There's a little bit of visible green there, so it's not a full wither, but that's okay. Often that just means there's going to be a little bit more. This looks like it's scissor cut, so maybe I was wrong about this being all like even hand plucked leaves. This might explain the lower price. They might have mixed in some of the beautiful hand cut leaves with some scissor cut. Yeah, you can see that leaf is cut pretty cleanly there. And this is not the complete bud sets that I was impressed by when I was analyzing the dry leaf. So there's a lot that the finished extraction can tell you about a tea, right? Okay, let's looks like our guest might be having a hard time getting onto the show. I will make sure it's all going okay. You can join us in the chat room if you're watching this right now. On the top right, there is an option there where you can join the chat. We can say hello. You can ask your questions. If you're watching the archived version of this show, I encourage you to check it out. Every Thursday at 1 is when we generally do JagaVision. Next week, we're actually going to have a pretty exciting guest. We'll have CPS Mastering on the show. They mastered my music album, and we'll be drinking some tea together. And it's likely going to be that beautiful Chuntizan. Ooh, scared me there. Okay. I have sounds like we have Matt on the show. Matt, are you there, Matt?
Yeah, hi.
Oh, hello. Okay. You are in my ears. Okay. There we go. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. Hopefully the audience. It was funny. You came on audio with a big thump there.
Maybe it's because I was plugging in my headphones as I logged in.
Ah, I see. Okay, there you go. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. All right. Well, welcome to the show, Matt. I really appreciate you coming on. We're live on youtube.com/jagasilk. If people are watching archived versions of this show, you can check out in the description who we're speaking with. But Matt, you're a musician. You've been coming to the Tea Bar for quite a number of years now here in Victoria. But
yeah, since before I lived here.
Yeah, and you're quite well traveled. Where do you? So can you tell us? Tell the viewers a little bit about your music project? What is Matt Stern music?
What
like
is
the musical project? You know, like what is your what is it that you're doing with your musical self, good sir?
Well, it's definitely ever evolving, and it depends a lot on the connections that I make. I find that kind of like changes the route that I take because I love to collaborate. So I find where I go and who I meet ends up influencing my creative project a lot.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So lately, I mean, it's changed a lot during quarantine. I could say that.
I believe it. Yeah, a lot of time, I'm sure, in the solo world, hey, where you're just like you're not really interacting as much as with other musicians on a actual in-person basis, right?
Yeah, and I made a very deliberate decision at the beginning of lockdown to kind of like come up with a creative project to keep me sane.
Okay.
So I got one of those little controller keyboards and started making a whole different kind of music with it using GarageBand. And it kept me occupied every day when I couldn't, like you say, meet with other musicians.
Right. Okay. And so you've been kind of experimenting with adding your own sounds using sort of pre-recorded snippets and inserting them into your tracks that you're creating. Is that's what I would understand?
Yeah, using some loops, and mainly just having beats to play with, because usually typically I write on guitar or piano very acoustically, very intimately, and this kind of got me onto a whole wavelength of like danceable beats and electronic sounds, which usually I would add later kind of with a producer, but now I'm sort of tinkering with it myself.
Where it actually can inspire the direction of the composition.
Yes, exactly.
And that's exciting, right? Because I'm super interested in the musical process. And as you know, I have a side project, Truth and Dolphin, that is my big passion. And you have one of the few people with the pre-release of the album. So,
and I had a question for you about that. You said that was 20 years in the making, right?
Yes, I did.
That's like when you wrote the first poem that became a song, that kind of thing?
It's a process of so Truth and Dolphin has had many manifestations, but it's me. But I started writing with Sherry Ann in high school, and I'm 38, 1982. That makes sense, right?
Yeah. 30.
Okay.
7? I don't know.
I think that's how it works. It's an even number. 2020. I just had my birthday, so yeah, I'm 38. I can never remember. Anyway, so and many of these songs actually, I guess the oldest song on there, which is All of Your Money, Every Stitch of Your Clothes, was written when I was 18. So, you know, that was performed, never recorded, but performed in a very different style. And there's always been this goal of releasing music and making tracks. And I started Jaga Silk with the idea, with my wife Mew, with the idea that I would have something a little bit more stable to support a musical career that I would think would not be so stable. Really ridiculous thing to do, but because
that's such a familiar narrative to me. I find myself thinking on the same lines constantly, for sure.
But it was like, why would you do something like start your own? You know, most people, if they want some stability, would not do their own business.
But I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and I think that there's a certain mindset, like maybe like a creatively oriented person, you can't help it. Like you need a project to sink your teeth into. Right. You can't do something kind of standard and conventional. Like
yes,
there's right. So
I used to have like I think an unfortunate side of myself where I was like, oh, you know, office workers and drudgery and kind of, I guess, a judgmental younger self. And now I have huge respect for the discipline and the kind of almost the Buddhist philosophical perspective that can allow you to go and create sort of a world for yourself where you can find meaning within something that perhaps is not meaningful on the sort of like a shallow objective perspective, but like you can find it within it. Like it's those interactions with other human beings. It's the quality that you put into the work that you produce. Like there's so much that's possible in these environments that I would have a hard time working within. And I guess, yeah, you're right. I need to have like a creative outlet for like creating something, you know, like that.
But I see what you mean too. Like stereotypically menial tasks like washing dishes or something, and finding the freshness in it. Like when you have a routine, like you say, on the surface it can seem redundant, but or seeing the same people every day, but actually realizing that they might be offering something completely new.
Exactly. Yeah, a good friend of mine. I think it was 8 years ago when I met him, and he was computer programmer, and I was like, you know, wow, you know, like to me that was so like huge respect, but it would be so mind-numbing for me to be programming code. But he was like excited about it. Not only was it like, say, the office worker job, sure, but he was able to, for him that was his creative outlet. Like he was really into this, like on a very passionately interested level. Like he would look into this stuff on his own free time, you know. And that's amazing. Like, and now I've met quite a few people like that where I'm like, okay, you know, like different strokes for different folks, right? Like,
yeah, like what gets a particular person into that kind of flow state, right? So different.
It is, yeah. And there's so much synergy too between worlds, right? Like I am in tea as my main career, but it was so interesting to me. Like you said, you're working with GarageBand. When I was recording that album, I kind of researched. It looked like the main thing that everybody uses is Pro Tools, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess I was like, okay, you know, Pro Tools, but it was quite an expensive subscription. I wasn't against it, but I wanted to make sure I was making the right decision. And after a lot of research at the time, this is 4 or 5 years ago now, I actually came away with Reaper as the kind of the tool that I was going to use for creating. And a big part of that was just like, it's easier to use. You can create really finished sounds a little bit simpler with the plugins that automatically come with it. And I kind of experimented a little bit, and I started to really like it. And then I just kind of took the deep dive, and I've never really looked back. But what an interesting process. Anyways, I'm going on a tangent here. To loop it back to tea is that there's this sense of like I was just drinking this tea for the audience before you came on the show, and at first it was a little bland, and then I kind of took it a little bit further, did a little bit more to it, and I was able to bring out some more creaminess and some really nice aromatics. And then I experimented with taking it a little bit too far, and I brought out way too much acidity and tannin. And I feel that, like musically, when I'm putting together tracks, there's so much there's a parallel there where like you add too much of this or that, and you bring out too much bass or too much treble, or you create like chaotic rhythm, or the composition doesn't really make sense because
you know what it makes me think of? Compression as an example. Like when you compress a track, like it gets addictive. Like the producer I worked with last time, like as soon as he added compression, it's like, whoa, it just came alive. Like let's maximize that. But then, as you probably know, like if you do that too much, it accentuates all the oddities, and you might come up with like a really weird frequency that now all of this you couldn't hear before because it was buried, and now it's accentuated.
Right.
So that's just a clear example of what you're talking about to me, of finding that balance where it's the sweet spot of it's like making everything vibrant, but it's still keeping it balanced and kind of in equilibrium.
Yeah.
Not like extremes.
Like 100%. So whenever we're dialing in a T, that's really taken into account. And, you know, photography is so interesting that way too. Like I remember when I was in high school, I was taking some really interesting commercial art classes, and they would talk about like the placement of images and text, etc., for like where the eye goes to, like initially on a piece of paper, etc. And then just looking at like photography classes that I took that would say, you know, really basic stuff like divided into threes, because the composition of the threes is really pleasing to the eye, and like there's like an aesthetic that feels really comfortable. And you know, you can purposefully go off the beaten path, but it's really interesting to have those fundamentals down so that you can be like, okay, I'm purposely making this decision. Like for me with this album, I really wanted to understand sound a lot more deeply. And with tea, the way that my response to that desire was to not use flavored teas. When I'm making herbal blends with my wife, it's to not use copious amounts of ingredients. You know, this idea of minimalism, sure, but I think it's within that minimalist canvas. Having less allows you to really, again, deep dive and really understand on a really root level how complex these things are in their simplicity. So this album is like guitar and voice. And I've noticed that when I listen to your albums, that you have a very, it feels like a carefully simple composition, and that the complexity is hidden within that simplicity. So I feel like a kinship there.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
because I think there's the attention to subtlety means you're not banging people over the head with it, both with flavor, and I'm on the same wavelength as you about tea and often food also. Well, I mean, I like intense flavors too, but you get a lot from kind of like discovering and not it being like oversaturated with sweetness, for instance. You know, like sometimes like fruit flavored teas can be really like, oh, this tastes like a peach cobbler, but like
right, you're right.
I guess that invitation in, I think that is my approach to music. Like that's how I discover music myself, and that's how I probably create music, kind of like letting people come in a self-directed way, not being like, this is what I want you to feel, but right. This is what I'm offering, and come in. And, like, you know,
and again, food. You know, like when we're interacting with food, one of the things that I find is that that there can be almost too much stock put on how something tastes the moment that you like that first sip. That kind of is like the defining moment. That if it tastes good with that first sip, then that means that it's passed the test. But I really disagree with that. I feel like I really need to, not only do I need to dial something in so that it tastes really good, where I feel like there's a very like competent flavor structure, but I also want to feel how that resonates, right? Like I'm gonna consume it, and I'm gonna feel like, okay, how do I feel now that I finished this drink, right? Like and this is something that again my wife taught me, I think, is she really was like into this, where it's like I feel really gross after this meal, therefore even though it tasted good, I'm unhappy with it.
That's super interesting.
And I think with music, there's a parallel, right? Where it's just like, that sounded really good, but there's something about it that doesn't draw me back. Or when I listen to it 15 times, suddenly I find it really annoying. You know,
totally. That's so, because I often say to my partner when I hear like usually top 40 radio, like which I listen to in the car, there's a lot of artists that I'll say like they're good, like that's a good singer, like the song is catchy, but there's something not satisfying at a deeply felt level, and it's not about being snobby or anything. It's just it's what you're talking about. I think that helps me articulate. It's like I don't really feel anything. I'm like I might just kind of like sing along for a couple seconds.
Yeah.
But it's not penetrating.
It might connect to a memory, and you might have this nostalgia that gets sort of connected to that song, and that might help to enhance its sort of spiritual experience. But it's not necessarily something that you would seek out if you were looking at it at a purely sort of compositional level. And what's really interesting is a lot of times these musicians that are very talented and putting together these songs that you're talking about, where they maybe doesn't draw you back later, or it's not, there's something that's not satisfying. When they play live, it's amazing. And so I think that there's like, I think this can happen again with the processing of sound on the studio level, where perhaps there's a disconnect between that sort of resonation with the other people playing, and
the focus on commercialism, I think, is what works for radio, for instant gratification. That works for marketing, right?
But does it really, right? Because like, and this is the kind of the idea behind Jaga Silk too, is that like, yeah, you know, I feel like I have a pretty, after being in the industry for 15 years, I feel like I have a good idea that, you know, if I jumped into some bandwagons that involve a lot of sugar and a lot of perfumes, that I think that, but like, because I do a London Fog, hey, and I'm actually pretty happy with it, but I think that I couldn't run the business if that's all I produced or if that was the main focus. I don't think it would give me what I need. For me, that's my pop song. But I really need to have something really meaningful and sincere, and for me, that's, you know, the matcha feels like really deep, and it's important to me. And so for the music too, I think I'd probably be okay with having a song that was a little bit more upbeat and catchy, but it would need to have something that draws me, something that keeps me, something that when I go back and listen to it in like 5 years, I'd still be really proud that I did that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, same. Like, and I mean, like, I love pop music, I think, but that's what I look for too. That some kind of authentic connection with it.
I think it has to do with unpredictability. I think it has to do with,
if things are too in the pocket, then you get into like a zombie mode while you're listening. You're like, oh yeah.
I feel that way with narratives too. Like if I'm watching a film, or I'm watching or I'm reading a book, if I can very easily figure out where the plot is going and what everybody's going to do, and I'm not really interested. And it's not like I look down at it. I'm not like, oh, that's not good enough for me. It's not like that. It's just like, I think I have a desire. There's a part of me that always, like, when I was reading a lot, I would always have a book that was nonfiction and a book that was fiction. And then I would tell myself that the nonfiction was like so that I could learn something really real and physical. Whereas when, like, part of the physical realm, I should say. Whereas, you know, the fiction narrative was something that was escapist, sure. It let me go on a little bit of a holiday, but I don't think, I couldn't handle books that were just, like, pure escapism. Like, there was nothing rooted in anything. There's no symbolism, no unpredictability, no, like there's nothing, the person writing it didn't have anything to say. Like, it's just fluff. That was really challenging for me.
I see it on a spectrum too, in terms of like what you're talking about, like things being right in the pocket, like a really familiar narrative, accessible, but cliche. And then at the other end of the spectrum, like total experimentation, like absurdist, surreal, like where people, you know, a very, very niche situation where some people would really be like, that's amazing. But most people would be like, I have no idea what's happening and I don't care. So I think about that spectrum and like where we situate ourselves at different times. Like we might get bored. We might prioritize doing something that people can relate to. And then we might get bored with that and want to be, you know, like shift to being more experimental for ourselves. And even if it's off key, even if it's really weird, but just to kind of like shake ourselves out of familiarity, you know?
It reminds me also of the political spectrum, you know, this idea that, you know, like there's this idea of what is liberalism, you know, what is conservatism, and it's very different and divorced from, say, like the cliche concepts of what we commonly say, like identifying with particular ways of being. But it's more, from my understanding, it more has to do with how society is moving and changing and adapting all the time. So what is normal now was not normal 100 years ago, and there's always a social movement towards a particular utopian ideal. And if you go too far in that direction, you become an outcast, a freak, you're jailed, there's all sorts of things that happen to you. If you don't have any movement at all, you're dodgery, you're kind of like old and moldy, I think is a horrible term I heard recently. You know, there's like some judgments that happen there, and I guess it's finding that sweet spot where you can be maverick enough or interesting enough that you are encouraging that momentum forward, and so then you're participating in perhaps bringing a community with you that can help to develop and bring culture in that direction. I think musically, with tea, with politics, with food, I think that's really important. You need enough familiarity that people feel comfortable, but you want to do something different enough that you're learning and you're building culture and you're creating some forward momentum.
And I think the sort of primal desires that underpin that for all of us are the desire for security and desire for novelty, like always contending against each other, or
and musically, you're gonna want to obviously have something like you're going to draw from the classics to create something new, and there's something that honors the people that come before you, and there's something really beautiful about that that's important. I want to, and I don't want to not give you a chance to respond to that, but I would love to start making tea. It looks like Sister Speak's having a hard time getting on the line.
Okay, I can start boiling my water.
Yeah, why don't we do that? So we can talk tea, etc. She looks like she's trying to get on, but is having a hard time. Maybe while I'm emailing her, you could respond to that, the idea of like drawing from the classics, and then I'm gonna.
Yeah, well, an anecdote that came to mind is I once started writing a song that just sounded so familiar to me. I was compelled to write it, so I wrote it, but then I shelved it because I was like, this sounds too familiar. Like, it sounds. I could name 10 other songs. It sounds like it's the same chord progression. Why bother finishing it?
Right.
But then something compelled me to come back to it and record it for my album. It's called Holy Wine.
Okay.
And it ended up being, sure enough, a lot of people's favorite, including mine for a time.
Interesting.
So not dismissing it as too familiar became important too, and realizing that I was still offering enough freshness that it didn't feel like you were describing, where it's like, oh, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, I'm not bringing anything to the table, kind of thing, right?
It was reminiscent of a classic song, so that felt good to people. There's like a nostalgia in that,
And that's important. That's beautiful. It looks like Sherry Ann has joined us as well. So I just
hi, Sherry Ann.
Hello.
In the car.
Just getting set up. What's up? Hey.
Awesome. So you're driving. That's great. Do you have the
Yeah.
Do you have the tea with you? Were you able to prepare it in advance, or how's this? Oh, and you're drinking kombucha. You look like you're drinking beer.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. So for our viewers, Sherry Ann and Matt actually, they do know each other from the event, and they're both musicians. Sherry Ann is with her recording alias is Sister Speak. She joins us weekly. Matt, Sherry Ann, Matt, you guys know each other, I know. But Sherry Ann, we were just having a deep dive into a lot of topics, but it seems like we were talking about sort of the relationship between food and music and politics and tea, and how like the balance of doing something really innovative, or like kind of going really out there and being experimental, but also drawing from classics and conservative sort of more cultural, historical backgrounds to sort of like offer a canvas is important in politics. It is also in writing music. It helps make people comfortable and bring them along for the ride, where you can hopefully encourage a newness or an unpredictability or an opportunity for learning for yourself and the people that are participating with you. And then we were also talking about the relationship between flavor and song, and we were talking about the songwriting process a bit. We've actually covered quite a lot, haven't we, Matt?
It's been very philosophical, very quickly.
I'm gonna have to rewind.
Mm-hmm.
Are you actually driving, Sharon? I see the landscape moving.
Oh, I'm not. I'm the passenger.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's true. I see your hands.
That's awesome. Yeah, it does actually look
And
like you're driving.
I do have a bomber.
So do you have the Huang
it's reversed.
that we sent you?
Yes, I sure did. Right here.
Nice. Do you have the ability to brew it? How's this gonna happen? This is gonna be amazing.
Yeah, I've got a couple jars with me.
Yeah.
And I've got a strainer, and I got my little baby scale.
Okay, this is
And
the all important.
I've got hot water.
You did. You brought hot
bottle.
water. Of course you did. Okay,
Amazing.
That is so cool. Okay.
I just brewed it.
You just
96.
96. So
it's probably 85, 90 now. What do we need it at?
we need it at 90. That's perfect. Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. Okay, so we were actually just about to start making tea. So you've joined us at this moment where we were gonna brew. Matt just heated up some hot water, and
I wonder if the scale's gonna work.
that's a good question. You know, you need 6 grams, so I don't know how accurate that's gonna be.
Yeah, I don't have the implements for the temperature or the quantity, so I'm gonna have to approximate.
So what you're gonna do, Matt, is you're gonna do what I have a lot of folks at home do. Is your boiling water is gonna be 100 degrees. So if you have a tea, like a jar and a sieve in another jar. Do you have maybe your teapot can be your decanter rather than what you brew in? Do you have a teapot?
I have I have a teapot, or I have mug with a sieve like this.
Okay, so the ideal is to have the tea in a free sort of jar. Like, you don't put it in the sieve. You would pour out of the measuring cup or jar through that sieve into your drinking cup or decanter.
Gotcha.
So we want to brew in something else, not in that sieve.
Okay, I'll grab a jar.
Okay, awesome. Ideally,
I
actually,
can't seem
you could
to
even.
tar the scale.
You can't tear the scale. Okay, let's see.
Oh, I did it! I did it!
You did it. Okay, awesome.
Sorry, I spoke really loud. Sorry.
It's okay. So you want to do 6 grams. This is what 6 grams looks like. For you, Matt, that's going to be like if you were to empty the package on a plate, and you were going to divide. Hold on, let me do the math. And if you divide it into sections, this is going to get you the mass, okay? So it's 40 divided by 6 equals 6.666. So if you can like a little, like a 6 and 6, almost 7 equal parts would be ideal.
So I should pour it out?
Yeah, like onto a plate and then divide it into 7 equal parts. And then you're just going to use one of those parts. That should get you close to what you need. It'll be a little under what you need. But you can also use a little less water.
Do you have the lid by chance?
The lid?
Yeah.
Do I have the lid?
Like a lid. Like, I thought maybe if you put it in the lid, 6 grams, you could see what that looks like.
Yeah, just for a double check. I mean, the difference between like half a gram is going to have a pretty big impact on the end flavor. But
yeah.
So it's not.
I might have to approximate. I'm not able to tear the scale while I'm a passenger in the driving.
Right. I'll do my best then. I'll show you. What I should be doing is I should be sending people pre-dosed jars of this stuff for the shows, and then they don't even need to weigh it out.
It's kind of a fun part of the process, though.
I know, right?
I feel like I'm preparing a potion for real.
That's good. So this is what it looks like in the jar, Cher. It just kind of, it barely covers. Okay. It does like a single layer in the bottom, and you can't really see anything. Do you see that? Okay.
So you said a little bit less than a sixth of it?
A little bit less than a seventh of it.
Then a seventh, right?
Would be our
goal. Like the 7.
And then what you're going to do is, if you work with the theory, Matt, that every time you put hot water into a room temperature vessel, it drops 10 degrees centigrade. And you know that fresh boiled water, like the moment it's actually boiling, is 100 degrees, right? Then, every time you move it, it's a drop of 10. So what I do is I know it's boiling is 100. My goal is 90. If I put it into my teapot or my jar that I'm going to brew in on the tea, that would be your initial idea. But that doesn't work because it's more important that the temperature of the water before it hits the tea is accurate, right? So what we end up doing is we preheat the brewing vessel.
Okay, so I shouldn't put the tea in yet.
No.
Okay.
And then you're going to put the fresh boiled water. So you might even want to start the boiling process again.
Okay.
And then you put that fresh boiled water into the measuring cup. And that's gonna drop it immediately. So if you use the measuring cup, you can also measure out 180 milliliters, which is what you're gonna need. If your jar has measurements on it, then it's 6 ounces or 180 mils that you're trying to use. So for our viewers, we're using 1 gram for every 30 mils. That's our goal here. That's the ratio. You can upscale or downscale that. So you could do 4 grams and 120 mils. You could do 8 grams and 240 mils, which is 1 cup. Whatever you want to do. But for our purposes, what's on the tin that Sherry-Ann and Matt are working with is a 6-gram dose to 180 mils, 90 degrees centigrade, a minute and a half. So that's our. And also, if you just don't want to mess around with this, it's useful for everybody to know. that you can actually dump the entire contents into a 1 liter jar, fill it with cold water, put a lid on it, leave it in the fridge overnight. Next day you strain it and you have a concentrate. That concentrate you can just cut 25% concentrate, 75% hot water for instant tea, which is
okay.
quite
So
useful.
Jared, I put the freshly boiled water, 6 ounces of it. And how long should I wait before putting in?
As soon as the heat comes through the jar, so like you can feel it
so right away.
fairly quickly. And you're gonna pour that right on the tea, and you're gonna press go on the timer for 1.5 minutes.
Does that look like 180 milliliters?
180 mils, yeah.
So I pour the water on the tea.
Sorry, does this look like it? Sorry.
In a jar. That's a good question. Here, I'll actually try and figure that out. I'm just gonna start mine. Let's say that looks somewhat accurate to me, Shara. I'm just gonna grab a jar, and I will pour 180 mils into it.
And you said to pour the water on the tea or the tea in the water?
The tea should be in the brewing vessel, and then you want to put the water on top of it now that you've cooled it in the measuring cup.
Sounded so poetic, Matt.
I think I'm still confused. So the tea's in the sieve, and then I pour...
To tea or not to tea, Matt? That is the question.
Both and neither.
Yeah, both and neither. So you're going to put the tea in the preheated brewing vessel, and you're going to pour the water on top of it.
But I already... Okay. Oh, so I dump out the preheated... the water that's in the preheated vessel.
You're pouring...
That's not the brewing water.
That's not the brewing water.
Gotcha.
The brewing water is the water that you've cooled in the decanter or the drinking cup. So, I'm sorry. Let's start again. Okay, so step one is you have a jar you're going to brew in, right? So you're going to pour water in that, and you're going to throw out the water. That preheats it, okay?
Done.
Okay, next step. You're going to pour the water into a measuring cup because that'll let you get that 180 milliliters that you need. Measured.
So that's what was confusing me, because I was pouring it into the same jar.
I see. Okay, so you need something else, because you're also going to need to strain into something else so that you can cut the extraction.
Okay, so now I'm pouring the 6 ounces into a measuring cup.
Okay, amazing.
And then?
Now that water that you've measured 180 mils on, you pour it onto the tea and press go on your timer for 1.5 minutes. Ideally at the same moment, but it's not always possible.
Hey Siri, set timer for 1.5 minutes.
Wow, does that work?
Timer is set for 1 minute.
Yeah.
And 30 seconds.
Can Siri make tea for you? Ask Siri if she can make tea for you.
Hey Siri, can you make tea for me?
I don't have an answer for that.
Oh.
Is there something else I can help with?
That's sad.
That is sad. I wanted Siri to say something cheeky. Yeah, that's too bad. Oh well, life goes on. Okay, Sherry-Ann, where are you in the process? Matt, where are you in the process? Are we comfortable now? Are we brewing?
Yes, I had to change containers though.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. The only key thing here is that when you drop that water, it's hot, and then when it hits the vessel for cooling, that vessel is at room temperature. If you're making tea for a number of people, or you're making the second steep, if you make it too quickly, your decanter hasn't had a chance to cool, and you're not going to get the temperature that you need. This tea is a little bit more, it's like less fragile, a little bit more forgiving. So if you were to put slightly too hot of water on, it's not going to be the end of the world. But some teas, it's going to bring out like really harsh acidity if you put the wrong temperature onto the tea. This is just going to bring out more sort of a nice balance, that balance that we were talking about earlier in the show. Sherry-Ann, where are you in the process?
Well, I didn't have anywhere to throw my water, so I threw it back in the brewing vessel.
Okay, that's 6 ounces, by the way.
Oh, I did pretty good. Oh, this is the brewed now that it's soaked up with leaves.
Okay.
So my timer's done. So, sorry, Sherry-Ann.
I think. Oh no, sorry, my bad. I don't think I brewed mine quite long enough. Is what it tastes like.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And it also might be not cool enough or hot enough, I should say, because you didn't need to. You definitely didn't need to cool your water because yours was 90 degrees. Matt needed to cool his, but you didn't need to cool yours.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so then I changed vessels after it's brewed.
I would pour through a sieve into another vessel, yes, and drink out of that. So you can pour it through the sieve into a cup at 1.5 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And Sherry Ann, what I would do in your situation is I would put the water into I would preheat my brewing vessel. I'd throw that water out the window and water some plants or the road. And then I would put the tea. Right. And then I would put the tea, or I would drink it, like maybe just like slowly enjoy my 6 ounces of hot water. And then I would put the tea into the jar, and then I would put the water directly out of the flask onto the tea. And then when I'm done brewing, I would pour through the sieve into my drinking vessel.
Well, I didn't have enough, so I ended up putting it back into the hot water jar, into the thermos.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I probably cooled my water down a bit. But if I threw it out the window or on the highway, so I probably would have thrown burning water on my face by accident.
Okay. Then note to self: next time we brew in the car, let's bring a gray water bucket or something we can throw the water into. That
yeah. So I technically need 3 jars.
I guess so. When you're driving, a flask, and then I remember for our viewers. You would have seen in episode 25 or 26, I believe, we had Charles Antoine Frandelin on. He was a Quebec herbal tea farmer. When we visited him in Quebec, he pulled over on the side of the road and busted out his camera bag. And in his camera bag was a really delicate Japanese kyusu and some beautiful, delicate cups and like amazingly exquisite tea. And he had his thermos flask, and he was able to brew like amazing tea on the side of the road in his car out of a camera bag. And that was so inspiring that now whenever I travel, I'm like, you know what, screw this. I don't need like a durable like jar method so that nothing breaks. Like, bring my beautiful tiny tea set with me, just put it in a very protected camera bag, and then I can have beautiful tea. Now I've done this now on the ferry between the states and here on the Port Angeles ferry, the Black Ball or whatever it's called. And then we've had it on the airplane. We've had it in airports. We just bust out this really nice tea set inspired by Charles. And what you're doing there, Sharon, totally reminds me of that when it's just like, you're making tea on the road. Why not, right? Like, just, you don't, it is like a science experiment here, isn't it, Matt? But
well, I was going to say, if you guys can't see my plate, but I really feel like if like the police raided my apartment right now, it would look like I'm doing some drug scissors. The only thing I'm missing is like a flame or something. I don't know how drugs work.
Right. We get teased all the time because we work with green powders and scales and lab coats and it's like it's but
the tea separate into like lines, sections.
My goodness gracious. Yeah, no, there's definitely a very black market element to the aesthetics of what we do. That's for certain.
And caffeine totally is a drug anyway, right?
Well, yeah, we are. Caffeine is a drug. So
and you're a pusher.
Apparently, an enabler. I actually have a customer who would drink 20 grams of matcha a day. They would get a soy chai from Bolthouse Farms, and they would heat it up, and they'd make a massive bowl of matcha, and they would drink 20 grams every day. And I was like, wow, like that cannot be good for you. Like, there's always such thing as too much of a good thing, right? And
like we were talking about.
Yeah. And I was just like, you're gonna hurt yourself. Like, you really need to not do that. And she was like, you know what? At least it's not heroin.
Wow.
There is that.
So,
by the way, is my apple crunching too loud for you guys? Or is it okay?
Let's hear the apple crunch. Yeah, I'm not hearing it. We're good.
It sounds so loud in my headphones.
Is it? I think my I don't know about the viewers, but in my headset, which is generally emblematic of what everybody else is hearing, I'm not hearing apple crunching. Yeah.
Oh, the wonderful person that's driving did hear it, but I didn't.
Okay.
Sorry, I hope it doesn't distract you.
The mysterious driver. You should.
Just kidding.
That's awesome. So what are we tasting, guys? Like, this is.
I haven't tasted it yet.
You haven't tasted. Okay, let's. We know that Sherry Ann's is a little under extracted, and Sharon, don't be afraid to remake it. Maybe brew 2 minutes next time.
It's kind of odd because it has a tiny bit of an under extracted like mildness to it with a little bit of extra tannin. Okay. Now, in the first extraction of a really good oolong is always going to be all about aromatics. There's not going to be going along with texture. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say like floral. Some things like the smell is what's really getting to me.
Yeah.
Even before tasting it.
Like it's really, really beautiful, right? Like there's like a jasmine or like
jasmine.
like a very delicate, kind of like low. Like if you could turn down the volume on lilies, right? Then I think that's what I'm smelling.
It's like
right?
spring. It's making me feel like it's spring even though it's fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really beautiful. And you know that it's good when you finish the cup and you smell the cup and it just has that intoxicating aroma.
I have a deep cup so I can like stick my whole face in it.
There you go. Amazing.
And I'm sure it's affecting that I'm having it with an apple. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's great with an apple. We actually have done apple and tea pairings. Different apples taste good. Different cultivars of apples taste different with different teas. Sherry Ann, what are you tasting other than under extraction and over extraction? Do we have any anything interesting, like in terms of like, is there any positive flavors you're able to get out of it, or is it just not doing it for you today?
No, I'm liking it a lot. It tastes like jasmine. It tastes more like a green than a oolong to me.
Okay, that's a good point. Now you did have I guess a yashishang. Remember that show we did with Josh Hawken where we had like different roast profiles of the yashishang? It was like that was a dark oolong, and even the Bashan 144 that we drank, that was also a dark oolong. So this one is a fresh oolong. So this is actually definitely on the lighter side of oxidation, and so when you know you're picking the leaves and you start like massaging them and kind of like hitting them with some crushing. Rolling them, it's called. When you start rolling them, you're going to release that PPO enzyme, propyl oxidase. And propyl oxidase is what's responsible for browning the leaves, breaking down the cell walls, releasing sugars, doing a lot of really interesting things. And the more you let the enzyme, that enzymatic oxidation occur, the more you're going to reduce the tannins, and you're going to bring out a little bit more sweetness. And it's going to allow you to brew with hotter temperatures. Oolongs on this side of the spectrum only are really oxidizing until they lose about 20% of their moisture before they do the process called kill green, which is hitting the tea leaves at that point with enough heat to stop that enzymatic oxidation from happening, right? So we're actually enjoying a tea right now that's definitely in the terms of oolongs, which is 20% moisture loss via this enzymatic oxidation process, all the way to 80% if we were going to have an oxidation gauge. It's on the 20% side. It's definitely on the green tea side of the oolong world, if that makes sense.
I have a bit of might be a newbie question, but
sure.
Can we re-steep the same leaves?
Oh, that is what this tea is all about. Yes, that's what we are about to do. That is a great question, and it's an unsung, outside of like sort of the tea enthusiast world. I think that this is such a sad thing that this is not normal. So I want you to do a this time a 1 minute extraction, maybe a little bit more than a minute. It can get pretty astringent if we're not careful. And then the second steep is going to be back to a minute and a half. Sorry, the third steep will be back to a minute and a half. The fourth steep is going to be 2 minutes. I think that's probably all we're going to have time for today is the fourth steep. So let's if we go through it pretty quick though, I think we should be okay. So I'm gonna start mine.
We grabbed a couple apples, inspired by Matt Stern.
Excellent.
Actually, we have a whole box of apples in the back here from both my stepdad and also my brother and his wife's orchard.
Amazing.
What kind do you have, Sherry Ann?
This is an ambrosia, and we were just eating like secret varieties.
Secret
we
varieties.
have Cousin's Crisp and Starburst.
This is Honey Crisp, which I only discovered like a couple years ago, and it's so delicious. It's not delicious, but it's delicious.
It's not. What is it? Honey Crisp?
It's Honey Crisp, yeah.
Yeah, that's Mew's favorite apple, actually.
I can relate.
Yeah, it can be a little bit pricey, but it's worth every penny. It's it's a lovely, lovely texture, good sweetness. Yeah, what my stepdad's growing is quite interesting. He does a lot of cider apples. So he uses his apples for bringing out flavor structure in his apple ciders. Honestly, he makes the best apple cider I've ever had in my life. Like, it's so exquisite. So are you comfortable with the second steep, Matt? Are you able to get that 90 degrees fairly simply now? And then what I would just say for you is that there's a little bit of water absorption in the leaves. So you don't want to put 180 on top of them. You want to put more like 165, 170 mils, and make room for that. And if you've already started the extraction, don't be afraid to pour a little bit off while it's extracting.
Okay, I haven't started yet. I'm still boiling the water, actually.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. So.
I'm having to guesstimate. So this is for a minute and a half.
You're going to go for 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute's ideal. You let me know when you start, and I can press my timer over here. Did we lose Cheyenne? I think we lost her.
Again?
Oh, there you are. So if you want to start, if you let me know when you start, then I'll press start on my timer. It's 1 minute.
Yeah. Oh. I actually have a timer on my phone.
Okay. So you're okay.
Yeah. I actually only have 30 seconds left on the steep.
And Jared.
Yes. What's up?
Can we review just step by step? So I heat the cup, and then I start brewing, or is there another step?
So in the second infusion, the tea is already hanging out in the brewing vessel, so you don't need to preheat that one anymore.
Oh.
You could, if you want to be like super like on top of things, you could remove the tea, you could like preheat it, dump out the water, put the tea back in, but that's pretty cumbersome.
Well, I sort of just did that because I didn't know.
No, it's all good. It's all good. That's actually great. I've always wondered, how I would do that effectively in a cafe environment, but I haven't been able to figure it out. So you
said under 6 ounces this time?
Yeah, a little under because there's you got to leave room for some of that leaf absorption. The leaves absorb some moisture, and if you put too much water on them again, you're gonna have a really diluted and not under extracted, but under strengthed.
Right.
Second extraction. So yeah, being a little bit less is always a good thing. Different teas have different absorption rates, but generally your oolongs you're gonna take off about 10 mils or the equivalent to about 10% absorption, something like that. I guess that would be 18 mils, but so you could say more like 5%. Yeah, maybe you can just make room for 5% each time. Yeah. Once you get low into steep number 7, 8, 9, 10, I find that I only really need to make room for about 3 mils of absorption at that point. And then once it's kind of interesting if you ever do this on a scale. Once the leaves stop absorbing anything, it generally is the moment that the extraction stops. Like you stop being able to produce interesting flavors. You're not able to steep really that much more at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. Scale. I highly to our viewers. Big recommendation is for scales. They're actually more important than a temperature variable kettle, because the difference between a 5 gram oolong and a 6 gram oolong for the same amount of water. It's going to have a massive impact. Whereas you can make do without a temperature variable kettle, no problem. You can, even the farmers we buy from in Japan, they have like little analog scales, Matt, when they're cupping their teas, and they put like a 5 yen coin on one side, which weighs exactly 5 grams, and then for the analog scale, right? And then they put the tea on until it evens out, and then they have this great kind of old school way of making sure at least that the weight of the tea is accurate.
Cool.
Yeah. And then from there, this vessel transfer system is more than good enough. If you really want to be like next level with your vessel transfer system, you could get yourself a little thermometer. You just put it in there, just triple check that everything is spot on, and then you can rock it. But for more forgiving teas like this one, not really important. For more fragile teas, like a really good Japanese sencha, you probably want to be a little bit more close to perfect when you get to your temperature settings. That makes sense? Cool. How's that?
I kind of messed up. I overbrewed by 15 seconds.
Okay. It shouldn't be that bad. Is it horrible?
No, it's decent. It's just like I'm not doing the measurements. I'm guesstimating quite a bit today, so it's not the same experience. It does have a nice like jasmine taste to it, which is really nice. It kind of tastes like a bit of an overly extracted. I kind of overdid it a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. A minute. I was back and forth between a minute and a half when I was dialing in this tea for that second infusion. So you've just kind of gone in between my settings. I find backing it off to a minute just curbs that acidity a bit. And then you
Yeah, it's quite tannin.
Yeah. So and you kind of did that. Acidic. So we're gonna have to maybe give it a try again. You're also working with different water than what we're working with. You have a little bit more like a harder water. So you might be bringing out or highlighting different elements of the tea where you are up in the interior. Yeah.
It has a nice jasmine flavor to it, though.
I'm really
like floral.
Personally, tea's blowing my mind. I haven't had it for a little bit. Yeah, you're okay, awesome. I'm really like Sherry-Ann, when you get a chance, make this tea with a scale and maybe a thermometer even, because like I don't know about you, Matt, but I get like the second infusion is now I got mouthfeel. I got like silkiness. It's like the texture is like
it's deeper somehow.
Yeah, there's like the umami has come out. There's like a brothy quality to it. It is still got that jasmine, floral, beautiful sort of aromatic quality, but I'm getting more like it's got something more to say. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Now, question is, this is totally breaking all the rules, but because I made mine so tanniny, it's like really bitter. But like the first brew was it was delicious. It's still this one. I don't have any. I could either dilute it with regular water or I could dilute it with kombucha. What do you
think? Do it. Break all the rules.
Oh my god. Car tea becomes kombucha in tea car tea. That's ridiculous. Okay, yeah, why not? Give it a go.
Experiment.
That's awesome. Okay. So yeah, how is it? Is that like watered down kombucha, or are we?
It's very unique. It's it's like, I mean, I like it. Like it's kind of like a lemonade, like because it has a bit of a bitterness mixed with the sweet.
Interesting.
Is it warm? What temperature is it?
It's like lukewarm. Yeah. I don't know who Luke is, but apparently he's warm.
Oh, God.
He's a warm guy.
He's a warm guy. I am your father. Is he?
Luke, I am warm.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go into ... mode. So, I would for your third steep there, Cher. I would dump water directly out of the thermos onto the tea. I would go for a minute and a half is ideal. If you're faced with that situation again where you're just because of the water, because you weren't able to be with the tea, you've kind of pulled out a little bit more excess astringents than is really ideal. You can definitely play around with a little bit of post dilution. It isn't ideal because you're not going to be able to reproduce that flavor very easily the next time you want to make it. But you know what? If it makes that moment, that cup a little bit more enjoyable, then why not, right? Like I don't believe in being this like draconian tea enthusiast where I'm like, you cannot break these rules. It's like, these are just guides. These are guides. That's all they are. This is like a suggestion. If you really want to taste this, like this cultivar, this is the Huang cultivar, which doesn't really make sense. It's I believe that it's a derivative of the Qingshin cultivar. For tea enthusiasts watching, correct me in the chat if I'm wrong or in the comment section. But the gui actually translates as osmanthus. So there is like an osmanthus aromatic quality that is the goal here. And my understanding is that as much as there's this pretense that a farmer is working with a cultivar that will deliver this aromatic, I understand that on the ground, the reality is when the finished product has this aromatic of osmanthus, they call it Huang Jingui, even though it's made from a very popular cultivar from Taiwan. The Qingshin cultivar, and again, cultivars, we talked about apple crisps, we talked about Gala. In apples, those are cultivars. In tea, Qingshin, in my matcha, the Okumidori, the Yabukita, these are cultivars. This particular cultivar is from a nursery in Taiwan, if it is the Qingshin. And the Qingshin, what's interesting about that is that we're actually drinking a tea that was grown in Fujian province in China. And these leaves are like these trees are like maybe 7 or 8 years old. What's cool or very weird is that Fujian is like the birthplace of oolongs. Like when we talk about oolongs in general, Fujian is like the beginning of it all. And then a lot of the craftspeople went to Taiwan after World War II, and they kind of continued the project there. And now that things have sort of, there's still some tensions between the two countries, but in Taiwan, they are they're creating some pretty amazing cultivars, and this Xing cultivar was kind of reverse imported, you could say. So it's like a oolong cultivar, but being imported into the region where oolongs are from. Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm.
It would be like a cultivar developed in the United States or Canada for wine, like a grape, being imported to France or Italy, and then being grown there because they're so happy with the result, the product that cultivar is able to produce. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyhow, what are we thinking for flavor structure here? Matt, are we enjoying this? This is like, are you tasting bitters and sweet?
I just finished. Well, I was gonna say at the end I had little specks of the leaves, so it got very bitter at the end.
Okay.
I don't mind that, but it was a big change.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, there's that's actually a sign of a lower quality oolong, and I don't really believe that because Japanese teas have so much sediment in them. But there's this little guy here. This is like many tea merchants' friends. Is this
like
little,
it must have to do with the sieve too, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, if you get a pretty fine sieve, then it's going to reduce most of that. But the sign of a really expensive and well put together oolong is one that's been hand sorted and handled carefully enough that after extraction there's no noticeable sediment in the cup. Right? From a Chinese tea enthusiast perspective. But from a Japanese tea enthusiast perspective, sediment is not a bad thing. It adds to texture and flavor dynamics.
Well, that's the thing that I found is that like we were talking about earlier, like the first sip was different from the last sip. So it was kind of the whole of the experience was a journey.
Yeah, right? Like music should be, right?
Yeah. Music is not the same note the whole song through. It's like it's gonna take you places, ideally.
Yes, yeah. I'm really Have you ever heard of one of my favorite musicians in the whole world? His name is Jordi Savall.
Never have.
He's like over 100 albums. He's based in Spain. He has a label that he did on his own. Really focused on early music. So like basically the newest music he does is the Baroque period. And then he plays ancient music on ancient instruments, and he likes to record in ancient buildings because he says the acoustics and the stone and the shapes of the environments that the music is played in is going to reverberate differently and create different sound structures. So like the interaction of sound in these spaces. So Jordi Savall, amazing musician. My wife and I are big groupies. We like to, when it's not the pandemic, we follow him and try to go to a show a year if we can, as he travels around the world. But what's really fascinating to me is his project. He's done a few albums now where he's explored the folias, and the folias are so interesting because they are like a very repetitive group of notes. Songs that you find like there's a lot of different variations on the folias that have been composed and written around the world, and he likes to collect them. He travels to different museums, etc., and he reads old manuscripts and finds these songs, and then he likes to reproduce them for his CDs. Anyway, when I was putting together the Truth and Dolphin album that we were discussing earlier in the show, a big inspiration for me is this idea of the repetitive melody. I find that so interesting to have like the repetitive melody, but to build complexity and something interesting by doing either like what he does is he has like a guitar playing the same thing over and over again, and then he takes his viol de gamba and he weaves around it and creates really interesting sound structure by going around that repetitive note progression. Which
that makes me think of just like what popped into mind is like Afrobeat, like Fela Kuti, where it's like can be the same. It's very trance-like. Like it gets you into a mode for like a 10-minute song, but there's enough going on around it that it's in no way boring. You know? Totally.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's I find that kind of music so interesting. It's kind of where my big enthusiasm is. And it's like that. I mean, I like to. We've been jumping around a lot, Sherry-Ann, before you came on the show, and going into different like worlds and connecting them back to the musical composition world. But the tea is so interesting too because I'm working essentially with the same ingredients, right? and how I sort of interact with this extraction line and weave around it is going to create different experiences and different textures every time. And I think it's when I can get a tea that just like hits and comes out in one fell swoop and gives everything it's got in one go, way less complexity than if I can do multiple extractions and I get more out of it each time I visit it, and each time I work with it and enjoy it. And every day is going to bring a new interpretation to that experience of flavor. That kind of tea is so interesting to me, and that kind of music is so interesting to me. You know?
Yeah. I just wanted to share with you guys, I just smelled the leaves.
Yeah.
And they smell kind of like asparagus.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Totally.
Definitely.
Are we ready for the third steep, by the way? Should I start boiling?
I think we should. Yeah, we should totally do that.
I already steeped this one because my water was starting to cool down.
Oh, yeah.
I did ask for only an hour of your time, Matt, and we have hit that moment. Are we okay? Are we doing just maybe 10 more minutes and we're done kind of thing? Or
yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, all right, awesome.
Slow life.
Slow life, amazing. Okay. So,
although I'm going to be quite caffeinated after this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But the good
One
news
thing
is...
that's kind of funny.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that it's really funny because this is a car rental and like pieces of the tea leaves dried or like falling.
Oh, God.
And that's going to look really funny.
Where are you going, by the way, Sherry-Ann?
I'm going to... Have you ever been to the star system Syria?
Star System Syria?
Oh, she's joking.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Not yet.
No, I'm
No.
just kidding. I'm going to Victoria.
Oh.
Yeah, traveling, coming back, because you guys know what's happening tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
So
Got to be back for that.
yeah, gotta be for that. We actually have Lonnie Glass, really interesting fellow. He is going to be essentially he's written albums based off of historical research, and it seems to be more like a historical folk almost thing. It's quite an interesting project, and each song is like based on a chapter in the novel, and he's going to be performing at Outdoor Music Fridays here at Jaga Silk. For those watching, it's COVID careful. We have plexiglass screen up for the musicians so that those COVID droplets, if they are within the musician, are not expressing themselves towards the audience. Audiences are served with people in visors and masks, and we have everything in to-go cups and everything taped off, distanced, all that stuff. So it's all outside. I actually think it's quite an interesting venue. Like, even if it wasn't a pandemic, once the pandemic's done, I still want to continue these. Like, I think this is the way I like to do it. Like, we were doing this big festival, Matt. Every year we would try to do like this big hit of like, you know, we try and promote, and we'd really shoot for filling Nootka Court and have like this show and like all these musicians playing back to back and this long sort of almost music festival. But it's been so interesting to do this music series where we pre-sell tickets, and then we have
it's much more of a community building feeling that way, I think, because you
is.
have the consistency. People know it's like well, it relates again back to what we were saying, that kind of enough familiarity that people are like, oh, I can go to Live Music Fridays at Jaga Silk, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think it's turning into a thing.
It is.
I don't know how long we can keep it up. I really want it to be long term, but I'm concerned about the
winter.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll try. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I'm concerned about cold weather. Maybe we'll be able to get a heater for the musicians, and then the audience will have to bring blankets and really
for our
warm
fingers
jackets.
mainly. I
Right?
find it's hard to play. It's hard to play.
Yeah.
How long should I steep this one for again? Was it a minute and a half?
It's a minute and a half. And once the show's over, if you want to keep brewing, your fourth steep is going to be 2 minutes.
2 minutes, said, eh?
Yeah, your fifth steep is going to be 2.5 minutes. If you start to taste like under extraction, like it's just not giving you enough, then you can, the following steep increase by a minute or 45 seconds, and you can kind of play with it with your water supply, the way that the leaves are interacting with your tools, etc. So you can increase and decrease consecutive infusions. I find that generally it gets longer and longer. Once I get into the 7th, 8th steeps, I'm starting to brew like 3-4 minutes at a time kind of thing. And when I taste like a soft honey flavor and there's no more saturation possible in the leaves, that's the sign to me that the extraction's done.
Okay.
Ah, interesting. Does anybody want to see the view?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, this is the back view. That's a bed.
Okay.
under the tarp.
Yeah.
We came up here to the Okanagan after Thanksgiving so we could avoid all the travelers, and picked up some stuff for moving. And then this is the view.
Oh, isn't that gorgeous?
Mountains.
Yeah.
Today, the weather's good.
That is so beautiful. What a nice drive too. That road between Vancouver and the interior is so challenging when it is raining. My goodness gracious.
Oh my, I know. That's why we weren't sure if we'd be able to jump on the. I didn't know if I'd be able to do my live stream today. I barely did it, and then
got on the road. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, this third steep I did actually end up doing it, and it's a lot smoother tasting, less tannin.
Nice, good to hear.
It's really nice.
Cool, awesome. For those viewers that are watching as well, I just want you to know that Matt Stern is also been featured a couple times now. He's come on and done a show at Outdoor Music Fridays. So really appreciate that, Matt. It's been really awesome to hear your songs and grab your albums and really
love your music.
It's very mutual, really.
Awesome, and thank you. For coming out to my show too. And then I also want them to know Sister Speak is on every week. But yeah, sorry, you were saying.
I was gonna say it's cool. It's cool how our relationship has evolved because, like you said, I've been coming to JagaSilk like it's one of the first little nooks I discovered when I came here for the summer before living here.
Right.
And because I always seek out these little special spots, and I love matcha, as you know, and I also, as you do, have a connection to Japan. So it comes like a real treat to discover JagaSilk, and then became like a place I came back to after moving here, and it's cool to be on the other end and performing with you guys. You know? Unexpected.
Yeah, no, it's really I've been really definitely appreciating it as well, and it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like I'm learning your music more, but I'm also getting to know you as a person a little bit better, and it's been really, really fun, man. Again, I think there's a shared world views, it feels like. So yeah, focus on really I just love your music. I just want you to know that it's really, 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 really fun to listen to. And you know what it is, you probably hear that a lot, like I love your music, but it's nice to hear something really real. What I would say is and this is from you as a person too, what emanates from your music is a certain kindness and authenticity. And I don't know if that has to do with like I know you have some like stuff to say that maybe you don't feel kind when you're delivering it, but there is that these really challenging messages sometimes are written from a place that's not hurtful or judgmental. It's like it's a really sincere place and really creative. It seems like each album there's a different way that you're composing music and a different kind of perspective that you're taking in your art. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah, thanks. I take that in. Yeah. I'm sure that's not a coincidence. I'm sure that has to do with the way I feel about people and connecting with people at a personal level.
Yeah,
that sort of comes across in the music too.
Yeah, I'm there's Cheyenne. What was that song he played that I was like, this song is like the best ever? The live show. Do you remember? Yeah, I love that song.
You know, you guys inspired me because Cheyenne, you said that was your favorite too, and I think that was my favorite when I first made the album, and I want to make a video for that one because I do feel like it's the one that's super.
I love that song. It just made me like. It reminds me of I love songs that give you like kind of like swing, that have a little bit of like groove, but then you really listen to them and you're like, wow, that's actually a good example of what I was just talking about. Like, you're not being nice, but you're not being mean. You're just saying something that's really important to say, you know? And also the way that you've composed the lyrics, like it goes into that unpredictable world that I was talking about too, right? So
and the other thing I'm sure you can both relate to, like that song changed a lot when we recorded it because I wrote it on mandolin and it was really like melancholy, kind of like, I mean, it sounds too derogatory to say whiny, but maybe more in that direction, like. Okay. And then with the production, it kind of lifted it, so it became catchy, and it still had that kind of like somewhat melancholy mood, but it balanced it out. It made it kind of also a happy, catchy song.
Nice.
Just enough, you know?
Yeah, no, I can hear that. Yeah. Yeah, with Cherianne. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, we're gonna be rocking both of your music after this call. Fire
Nice.
Drive. We have the Outdoor Music Friday playlist downloaded on our phones.
Nice. Yeah, and my single,
It's
"The
all
Pavement
fun.
and the Chain," Cherianne, you featured it on the there as well. You added it to the list, and so I feel blessed to join the ranks, you guys, with your music on that playlist. It's quite lovely. I don't know if you have a chance to listen to it, Matt, but if you look up Jaga Silk Outdoor Music Fridays on Spotify, she's put together a list of some songs that have been artists that have been performing at the music series.
Cool. Yeah, I will.
Yeah, please check it out.
Yeah.
We're getting to the end of the show here, but I just wanted
No!
I wanted to see if you guys had some final things you wanted to say about the tea, about the show, about to the viewers, et cetera, and maybe we could start with you, sir, Matt, if you wanted to take the speaking baton.
Let me think about it. Can I taste the third steep, and it'll help inspire?
Sure. Yeah, I'm tasting a little bit more cridity in the third steep.
Mine. This one's what's the term you used? Under extracted.
It's under extracted. Okay. Yeah, mine has there's a certain harshness to the third steep that I was unexpected for me. So I think I would actually brew another minute and 15. But you're tasting under extracted, so you want to brew a little more?
Strangely, I'm tasting it's diluted and bitter. Like it's lost the notes we talked about.
That's what happened to me.
With the second time for you, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I taste just bitterness, and it's lost the kind of jasmine quality.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
because it's still.
But I still smell
the
that
cup, right? Yeah. Huh.
Nice.
I'm sure there's I find that the teas transform in time too. Like I'll dial in a tea when I get it, and then 3 or 4 months later, it has a different personality. So it's like that. Those settings are always a flag post, and I'm pretty confident that if you do make them that way, the first, second, generally third infusions are gonna taste pretty darn good. But I think there's definitely room for adjustment.
Well, I do have. It did inspire my.
Sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say maybe this particular oolong, maybe it has a little bit more sensitive to temperature than the other oolongs.
Yes, because it's closer, it's lighter oxidation. It's going to be a little bit more fragile, more open to bringing out more tannin. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, Adam.
And we're both approximating our temperature. But Matt was going to say something inspirational.
Well, I was going to say that, I did get the inspiration from sipping the tea. So,
okay,
so I guess my final thoughts to share with you guys are the connections I'm feeling are between the tea, connecting with you guys personally, and music. What comes to mind, is the value in the slowness and the thoughtfulness and the care, because I see that you have that approach to tea, Jared, very much. And
we try.
And I'm sure you come across this sometimes. I'm sure some people are myself included, sometimes who cares? Just boil the water and put the tea leaves in,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of value in doing things in a thoughtful, caring way, with attention. A lot comes with the attention to give other people, and in the music creation process, and in the tea brewing.
100%. Yeah, that being present. I think it encourages a certain presence. You are able to. I think texture and subtlety. It encourages a certain almost spiritual perspective.
Yeah, and like you say, it's not so much about following rules to the tea, it's about that attention and care.
Yeah, it's a way of being when you're making it, when you're making the tea, when you're making music, when you're living your life, when we're living our lives. I think that definitely, it's definitely intertwined, this kind of...
Also, I just realized, did you hear the pun that happened accidentally? I said following rules to the tea.
Lovely. I like that. I like that. We should say that again. Let's repeat that. So this is a rerun of the pun. Okay, let's do it again. Come on, Matt.
So it's not about following rules to the T.
Amazing. I'm gonna take that.
You can make a poster of that.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. Yeah, we'll. All right. I want to make it even more awkward though. I want to. Okay, Cherianne, you have some thoughts? Sister speak.
Yeah, we're just we can say we're just about to turn, so I have to focus for a second.
Sure, no problem. Well, I'll tell you know.
You're good on this side. No one's trying to pass you, so that's perfect. We're just about to turn onto a highway. I think it's happening. The moment is happening. We are safe.
Okay,
that needs attention.
That does need attention.
It's like when I was cutting the apple earlier, I was looking at the screen. I was like, "Don't cut yourself. Don't cut yourself."
Yeah. We all gotta be present, right?
Yeah.
So mattstern.com. You can check him out there. Those watching, he also at Matt Stern Music is the Instagram handle. I'll catch him out on Facebook, etc. Sister Speak Music. You can also go to sisterspeakmusic.com for the website. If you go to jagasilk.com and click on live music in the store, you can buy tickets to the show. Patreon too. Sharon has a Patreon. I don't know, Matt, you have a Patreon going on too, or?
I don't know, not at this point.
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting process having the fans be a part of that. Sharon does a live performance every Thursday for her Patreon fans that they get special access to at 12 p.m. So anybody that wants to join her Patreon, go to patreon.com/sisterspeak and you can check that out. Sharon, you had some words that you wanted to say now? Is this the right time?
I love both your music. I love your tea. I love the community. I love I think that you have a very special tea production going on. Yeah. I also played t-ball when I was young. Oh, I think it could.
And see.
Yeah, that's like, I love how she dropped with that. That was some quality. Yeah. Yeah.
I just got a message that I exhausted my internet on my phone. It's like it didn't say you hit your limit. It said you have exhausted it.
We are exhausted.
We are exhausted.
Serving you.
Okay, that's a great way to end things today. Thank you, Sherry-Ann, Sister Speak. Thank you, Matt Stern, for coming on the show today and enjoying this pot of Huang Jingui virtually together. The pandemic has offered some really challenging scenarios for a lot of people. I feel blessed that I'm able to have this show and share these moments with some amazing guests, yourselves included. And so for that, huge appreciation from me to you. And Matt, hopefully we'll have you in for another session at our music series in the not too distant future. And
October 30th.
Yeah, actually that's happening right now. Now that I think about it, October 30th. Yeah, I was thinking November. I had it in my head that you've already performed in October. But Matt Stern, if anybody watching, you want to come check him out. He's going to be performing October 30th. It's actually the last time that we're going to have 2 sets of an hour. In November, we're going to be moving into 2 sets of half an hour to just less time in the cold. So Matt, you get the you get the long time in the cold. Hopefully it's not going to be that cold. And really loved your performance last month. Really looking forward to it this month for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
it has been warm every time this month so far. I haven't been cold for a second.
We've had the gentle rain going on.
Yeah. Last week it rained sideways. It was crazy. Anyway, thank you guys so much for your time today. And we'll come check out the tickets online, viewers, and buy Matt Stern's show or Lonnie Glass's show. Every week we also have Sister Speak performing. It's quite the joy to be able to celebrate tea and music together. So thank you both for bringing that to JagaVision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye guys.
Bye.
A bientôt.
Okay, so thank you to our audience as well. If you're watching this archived, if you want to click on subscribe, it's in the bottom right of your screen there. If you turn on notifications, then every time that this show starts, you'll get a notification in your inbox that it's about to go live. We have CPS mastering coming on next week. We're going to be talking about the intricacies of mastering sound. We'll be enjoying the Yunwu Chuntazong, a really lovely green tea. Looking forward to it immensely. If you want to go on our website and buy the Yunwu Chuntazong, you can always join along and drink it while we're drinking it. You can also do that with the archive version of the show. But live, you can tune into the chat. You can ask us questions while we're holding these shows. So again, I'm Jared Nyberg. This is JagaVision. Go on jagasilk.com for updates for shows that are coming up and what we're going to be drinking, etc. And it's every Thursday, 1 p.m. See you next week. Take care.